All right, welcome back to the channel. This is Coach Ware. Today we're going to be going over two more stunts involving your defensive ends and now your tackles. Uh, Very similar to the Nat and Tan. We're going to talk about eat and tie. Same principles. The letter that comes first in the term is going to be your slanter, and then the letter that comes second is going to be your looper. So eat, your end's going to slant, your tackle loops, and then the same thing for a tie. You've got your tackle slanting now, and your end is now the looper. What I love about this defense again is the ability to manipulate and just the ability to call things however you want to best suit your defense. And so we were able to signal everything in from the sideline. We had signals for our coverages, our stunts and blitzes, and then to the sides that we wanted it. It's stuff that we did in practice. We never called stuff from a huddle in terms of coaches standing in and telling the players what we wanted them to run. And then we talked about the signals and went through the signals as we taught the scheme in the spring during weightlifting and through summer. So again, we just continued to teach it so that they understood every aspect of it. What I like too about this is when you run these stunts, you have the ability to call it to the strong side, to the weak side. We could call it to both sides. And then we also, depending on the week and the game plan, could call it to the wide side or to the short side. So, you could run a eat strong with a tie weak. You could run eat double, which just means both sides go, and you don't have to decipher between strong and weak side. We could go tie short, and that would just mean the defensive end and tackle to the short side of the field are going to run their stunt. So just some different ways that you can call it to suit your game plan for the week. And it's just some things that we were able to do and that we did. So we'll go through the basic stunts. We'll not talk a whole lot about the technique, as it's stuff that is very similar to what we discussed when we went through the Nats and Tans. So with the eat, the defensive end is going to slant, and his goal is to go through the inside shoulder of the tackle when he's running the stunt to the strong side. So because he's in a 3 technique, things are going to happen a lot quicker, and he's already a gap within striking range to that gap. As far as his moves go, he can work a variety of moves. I went through some of those in the sled progression. It's stuff that I encourage you to work a lot of and just be able to use it against a multitude of different things. We also practice the stunts. We use garbage cans just because I felt doing it against a sled isn't really necessarily realistic. And then we would start garbage cans and then move against live offensive linemen. We did a lot of our stunt practice when we did one-on-ones with the O-line. All right, so your looper, okay, he's a one-stepper and he's going just because of timing. And then he wants to hug the slant tight so that he doesn't get too far outside, but he's also got to be responsible for contain depending on the offensive play here. But more times than not, he's our contain player. All right, so if we ran it to this side again, nothing changes with the exception that the gap that he needs to get to is different. So obviously I don't expect him to rip through the inside shoulder of the guard and cross face. So as he's slanting through the inside shoulder of the tackle, he's attacking the outside shoulder of that guard, and he wants to press vertical. And then here, your nose has got more time to get into the loop, so he's going to take his few steps, or he's looking for peripheral vision, and then he's wrapping around. Depending on, too, who your nose is, the eats and the ties weak may not be advantageous for that guy's skill set. So if you've got a big dude up front who isn't super quick and you don't trust to contain the edge, and he's more of your double teamer, holding up the doubles, then it may not be the best stunt to run. All right, so again, then tie, the big difference here now, your tackle slanting and then your ends looping, and then the same technique and principle for that we talked about. I like it here to the wide side or to the weak side just so that he can do a really good job of setting him up. We did a kind of like a zone blitz where we would get this guy to open up, and I taught these guys in the event that happens, you can hit that inside shoulder as long as you feel like you can still get contained from that area. So if he really does a good job here selling upfield before he gets into his loop, then this nose can attack through that inside shoulder of the tackle as long as he feels he can still get contained to the edge. Some other things that you could do running these stunts is just run them out of different fronts. So if we went even, we could do it. We could do it odd as long as it felt like the tackle and the nose here were capable of being contained players. You could do it from your under front if you run it. So just some variations. Again, advice when you're running a stunt is to not give a tendency as to your alignment. So, you don't want to be running your even front where you're putting both of your tackles, your tackle and your nose in three techniques and running them. It's just stuff that people will pick up on and will game plan, and then it gives a tell to the offensive lineman. And then under that same kind of principle too is, don't allow your players to cheat back in their alignment. I've seen that too, where if we're running the tie here and the strong side end is gonna play back, obviously not that far back, but you don't want to give any tendencies away. So what we'll do is we'll take a look at some film. We'll talk through the technique used and go from there. All right, so one other thing too to talk about before we get into film is in the event that there's attached tight end, this normally wouldn't call off our stunt. The only thing again that this is going to change for your guys up front is just the gap that they're going to. So to that strong side, instead of that being a quicker stunt where they're maybe one stepping or the loops happening a lot faster, you're just adding that additional gap. So the defensive end and the tackle need to know who's going to be responsible for contain. So if there was a game being ran here, that might call your stunt off, or because you're running the stunt, a game that you may be running with your strong side linebacker and your end may be called off. Where we would call off stunts up front would be if they were to come out in an ace, so a two tight end set. We weren't big fans of necessarily running these stunts when we're in an even front. Again, we had certain things that we like to do out of against ace with our outside linebackers that we felt was better schematically than running stunts up front. And again, that could be a week-to-week, game-to-game decision. So maybe that week, you did like it, and then you just keep it. So again, every week is different. Every offense has their different strengths and weaknesses. And so you obviously want to exploit what's going to work best for your defense. So we'll take a look at some film. All right, so taking a look at an eat stunt here, we're going to be running this to the weak side. This also could have been called short based on formation. You'll get a motion, and the only thing that may have changed for this week motion-wise, if he was to become attached or if he was lined up in the slot, then that might bump the end out a little bit, and we may have changed strength. So again, game plan stuff that you can look at for your given week. So because this is to the weak side, the defensive end is expected to get to A gap, but also we don't expect him to cross the face of both of the offensive linemen. So he's going to work a move through the inside shoulder and then work his way to A gap. He's going to sell upfield and then get into his loop. So we'll take a look at the slant first, and then we'll loop, and then we'll watch it from the end zone version. Okay, so the defensive end sees the motion coming. It's not necessarily in a threatening position because he doesn't get set. So, again, not much of an adjustment made. DN does a great job of using the rip move. We talked to when you're working that rip is to bring that rip all the way up through so that you can clear that arm off. And you can tell here he's worked his way down to the A gap, and now he's created disruption here in the gap, so it doesn't allow the back to have his cutback lane. Okay, the defensive end of the strong side does a good job of setting the edge. The looper here, I would like for him to be a little bit more upfield, a little bit of like a hop step, and then kind of just reads flow, but does a really good job of making sure that he's contained to that side. And I love when they're physical, so I'm not going to hate on him shoving the fullback down. And then do a good job of rallying to the football. All right, so we'll watch this from the end zone. See their feet, their footwork, and see gap integrity a little bit better from this angle. Okay, so looper does a good job getting A gap, and he does a good job of bringing a move. Again, it's stuff that you got to practice and work. And then again here, I would like to see that a little bit more upfield as opposed to kind of like the stutter step. But still, again, he gets to where he needs to be, and it's a pretty decent job. So another stunt here to the weak side. Again, I was fortunate to have really athletic guys up front, so we had the ability to do this and not be concerned a whole lot about the nose not getting outside for contain. But I just wanted to show this one to kind of talk about, a little, tweak to what you could teach as far as that slanter. So he was really good at trying of like setting up the move to the outside first and then slanting. It wasn't something where he set it up and it took a long period of time to occur, but he knows with this guy looping from the one technique down in the A gap that he's got a little bit of time to sell it. And then what this ends up doing, because one of his strongest suits was his inside move, and so he got a lot of tackles to just collapse down on him. So we'll see, because of his ability to work that sort of move, it opens up the alleyway for the nose guard here. And again, who comes free in the stunt is all depending on how the offensive line sorts through it. So we'll watch the end first and then watch the tackle or the nose here. So again, he does a good job. He stutters and sets him up and does his swim inside, and then does a good job of working to his A gap, dipping under another blocker. And because of that, you can see that there's no one there really to get that nose. Okay, that guard's not making that block. He's already past his hip, and he's dipping and ripping, passing through. So, all right, so on this one, we're running a double tie, so tackles are slanted outside to both sides. I'm fairly certain, and I'll look at it from the end zone copy, that we're doing this from an even alignment, but we've also got our backers walked up, and they're actually bluffing. So reasons we do this, we want to deceive these guys. We never want them to know who's coming and what's happening. I feel like the more that you can show stuff and bail and then show stuff and go, it really gets these guys up front guessing. So their communication has got to be spot on. Okay, so we'll watch the near side, then the far side. So again, this guy does a really good job slanting and taking that tackle with him. Um, Defensive end here gets a little too far down inside. I would have liked him more off the hip of the slanter and tighter, and then getting into the B gap as opposed to the A gap. He's a 6'4" guy, so if he's where he needs to be, then his arm might be in that passing lane and able to knock that ball down. To the top side here, a little bit better timing, and he does a little bit better job of pulling the guard with him. You can see the guard is going, and then would like to see that end have a move going with him. So quick throw, gets it out in time, and the O line's going to beat you sometimes where they do a good job of sorting stuff. So we'll look at it from the end zone. So yeah, actually not in an even front. So we're running our tie double with our normal alignment with the backers walked up. So we'll watch here. You can see the aiming point. We want him to go through that inside shoulder or outside shoulder here, the guard, because he veers so far down inside now. It allows the center to help on the double and the pass protection. We'll watch it to this side, and we'll talk here. I mean, these guys up front sort this out really nice. So he does a good job initially. Um, I would have liked to seen him rip through this inside shoulder and work vertical, so it makes him stay on this longer before he could pass off. And then it would be more difficult for him to pass because if he's staying on that defensive end initially, there's no way for him to kick back if he goes to that inside. So that's partially too why we talk about not crossing the face of two offensive linemen, is so that in this scenario here, it would make it a little bit more challenging for them to pass off. So because he ends up sliding out, it's a little bit easy for them to sort. And they do a good job up front too. So they do a good job kicking and then passing off.